it will be something like this. There will be 4 questions like this for each speaker. And then it will be on matter, manner, and also method. So there will be 10 stars for each element for the matter, manner, and also method. 10 means it's excellent. You think that it's flawless, it's perfect. And for 1, it means that the speaker needs some improvement for their speech and for the debate. And you'll also be choosing the best speaker for the whole debate, and there will be the names written over that, so you can choose by selecting the option in the form. And also please do take note, and it's very important that the Q&A session will not be taken into account during the judging, so it will only be on the debate itself during the 7-minute speech of the debate. So please don't take into consideration of the Q&A session at the end of this event, so that will not be used as a judging criteria in this debate. So if you want to, you can keep your forums open and then you can vote while the speakers are speaking. I think that it will be easier for everyone to do so. So you can see after this speaker speaks, then you can just cast your vote. Right. So after this judging forum, does anyone have any questions on anything they want to ask about the form? Because it's very important, you are judging today's debate. So if you have any questions, please do ask. Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll move on with introducing our teams. There will be 2 teams for this debate, and there'll be 3 speakers on each team. Team A will be the proposition team, meaning that they agree with the motion for today, and Team B will be the opposition, meaning that they disagree with this motion. So let us get to know a little bit about our debaters from Team A and also Team B. So when I call upon you, please introduce yourself, your course, and also answer this ice-breaking question. And this ice-breaking question is, if you are only able to eat one type of food for your entire life, what would it be and why? So let us start with proposition team. First speaker, Adam. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So hello, so my name is Adam. I'm from I take degree in international business last year, year 3. So one type of food. Sorry, one type of food, do you mean like if one type of food, then I'll pick potato then? Because it is the most versatile food that you can ever make. Like you can make salad, you can make fries, you can make wedges. Yeah, so yeah, potato.
Great, cool, interesting. Okay, second speaker of the proposition team, Suba.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hi,
Can you hear me?
can hear you.
All right, hi, my name is Suba. Yeah, I'll be the second speaker. I'm from PAIR, Politics, History, and IR. And if one food that I'll speak with is, I don't know, meat?
Maybe be more
food,
specific, right? What type of meat?
Wow, that's hard. Fish, probably, yeah, fish. I like fish, so yeah, that's healthy, and it's abundance of it. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Ah, okay.
All
Okay, thank you
fish.
so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So the third speaker from the proposition, Lucas.
All right, I'm Lucas. I'm first year computer science student, and if I had to pick one food for the rest of my life, I would pick roti canai because I'm a broke uni student.
Oh, roti canai, it's my favorite too. Okay, thank you, the proposition team. for your very interesting introduction. So now let us move on to the opposition. Opposition team first speaker, we have Sarah.
Yes, hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Sarah and I'm a second-year creative writing major. And as for which food I would rather eat for the rest of my life, I think it would be sandwiches because they're easy. And like, you know, they could be any kind of meal. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Sarah. So second speaker of the opposition team, Sanjana. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, you did. So I'm a second-year finance, accounting, and management student, and if I had to choose one meal to eat forever, it would be a burrito or tacos or anything Mexican. Really, I love Mexican food. I can have it all the time.
Nice. Okay, thank you so much. Third speaker of opposition, Hari.
Hi guys, my name is Hari, and I think I'm the youngest one here. I'm from first year in civil engineering, and a food that I would like to eat. You cannot never go wrong with ice cream and chocolate topping on it because I have like kind of a sweet tooth, so I kind of like that more.
Okay, wow, imagining eating ice cream for the rest of your life. Wow, that would be...
Yeah, you can never go wrong. You can have it on a cold day and you can have it on a hot day. Any day, it's just no worries. You can just have it.
Yeah, true. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, proposition and also opposition, for your introductions. So we are moving to the very important part, which are the rules of this debate. So please, debaters, pay attention to the rules. Each speaker will deliver a 7-minute constructive speech, and for your POIs, it cannot be given within the first and after the 6th minute, and POIs will be less than 15 seconds. There will be a bell on the 1st minute indicating that POIs are open, and another bell on the 6th minute indicating POIs are closed. At the 7th minute, there will be 2 bells, so debaters will then have to wrap up their speeches. There will be a 15 seconds grace period. So after 15 seconds, I will be asking you to wrap up your speeches and end your speeches, and you cannot speak anymore. I will call upon the next speaker to address his or her speech. Right, and the timekeeper, he is Amir. Amir, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so Amir will be monitoring the event with me today. He will be sharing his screen, so all the debaters and the audience would know that how much time they have left and whether the POIs are open and whether POIs are closed, right? And also, please note that for your POIs, please, if you want to raise a POI, just unmute yourself and say POI. So the debaters and speakers would know that you are raising a POI towards them. And please don't indicate it in the chat because I don't think that most speakers would be looking at the chat while they speak. Okay, and are there any questions regarding the rules of the debate?
I think it's clear so far.
No, all good.
Okay, good. So if there are no questions, then I think we can start today's event. Okay, debaters, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, if you guys are ready, then on the motion that the House believes that global warming is more important than global poverty, I would like to call upon the first speaker to open the proposition case for 7 minutes. Here.
Yes. All right, hold on. All right, start now. Okay, so first of all, my name is Adam. So our motion today is the House believe that global warming is more important than global poverty. So we as a government believe that global warming is much important than the problem of global poverty. The first one that I want to emphasize to all, everyone in this debate is, we believe global poverty is a problem, but we believe global warming is the greater problem. In the government position is global poverty is the elephant in the room, while global warming is the mammoth in the room. And from me, there's a few reasons why we think global warming is the greater problem to the human race as a whole than global poverty. And it is based on 3 reasons why why global warming is much more important for us, for human to tackle with, than global poverty. That is, first, global warming causes more poverty. Second, if it's not handled with, it will be much more harder for us to handle it if we don't handle it right now. And lastly, it's because of loss of life. So first of all, global warming will cause poverty. And you might ask into, okay, how can it become like that? Okay, first of all, if global warming do occur right now, what happened is it increased the catastrophe on our planet by the increased severity of storm, by the increased severity of cyclone, more natural disaster occurring, and not only the natural disaster occur much more greatly, but also it occur in a much more greater scale. So what happened is there will be a much more a greater destruction of property, and as such it increased poverty. So as of 2019, the economic damage from global warming alone can be counted up to $100 billion across the world. You must remember. And by 2015, it is estimated up to 8 trillion in economic damage by global warming can be caused by the effect of global warming. And not only that, it disproportionately affect the most vulnerable community on the planet. It affects the poorest community on the planet. So you must remember that the poorer community has less resources to defend themselves from the effect of global warming. So what happened is they get the greater damage from global warming. And not only that in some cases an entire country can be destroyed by global warming. For example, in Seychelles Island, there's a prediction that the whole country can be submerged by water if global warming is not handled because of the melting of the ice. So you must remember, if people say, oh, we must tackle global poverty first before global warming, you must remember sometimes if we even sometimes the people that we try to help worse off. Because why? Because when we help them, suddenly global warming, because of the global warming, they hit by storms, their whole country is submerged. So what happened is they become poor again. And second of all, if we did not handle global warming right now, and what happened is we require more resources and more time to handle it as the years go on. So you must remember the effect of global warming. It will snowball on each other. First, it may be a little, and then it become larger and larger problem. So like I said before, the cost of it is borne by the poorer of society. So it is better for us to handle it right now when the cost is relatively low, rather than we handle it in 50 to 100 years time where it is so bad that maybe all of us are become poorer at that time. And another thing you must remember is more resources is required to mitigate the effect of global warming, such as the making of seawall, the making of emergency food ration, and also more resources is required. So as you see, more resources is required to just mitigate the effect of it. So like we emphasize again that global warming is the greater evil than global poverty. And lastly, assuming that global warming doesn't have any bad economic effect, we just assume, which is not true, we just assume. it is still worse than global poverty. Because of what? Because of loss of life. Like I said, the increased severity of cyclone, this increased severity of storm will lead to not only loss of property but also loss of life. So it doesn't matter how much money is solved by solving global poverty. But if just one people die from global warming, we from the side of the government say it is still a greater evil than us, because one life is greater than than millions and billions of dollars. So and such, we from the government stand firm that global warming is more important than global poverty, and global warming must be tackled by the global community greater than global poverty and such. And thank you.
Okay, I thank the first speaker from the proposition team for his speech. So now I would like to call upon the first speaker from the opposition team to open the odd case. Here.
Okay, my name is Sarah Mustafa, and I'm arguing that global poverty is more important than global warming. We agree with the definition given by the proposition team. However, we disagree with their motion. The argument I'm trying to make here today is that the problem that global poverty has been a prevalent issue in the world for thousands of years. Solutions for it haven't been discovered yet, and no one has been able to fully eradicate it. No country has been able to tackle it, and no country can call itself free from poverty. And you may ask, why is it so detrimental for us to care about global poverty when there is a literal clock in New York City broadcasting the time remaining to avert an all-out climate catastrophe? And yes, that is important, and that should be a major concern in our society. However, do you know what will happen in 10 years from now if global poverty isn't solved? 167 million children will live in extreme poverty. Where is that clock? Who is counting those days? The issue that is global poverty has been persisting on for years and years, and is evidently the core of several negatives and other problems in our world. Without going too far, it's also a cause for global warming. Hence, what my team is trying to say is that if the world wants to rid itself from the pressures of global warming and climate change, it has to solve the problems with global poverty first and foremost. In my speech, I will be covering two main points to support my claim. However, before that, let us discuss what the proposition team had to offer about their claim. Those living in poverty could not afford to care about global warming issues at the moment because they're too busy worrying about whether they're going to have enough food for tomorrow. So even if you do avert all of the natural disasters and crises, they will still be in poverty and they will still continue to live in poverty. And global poverty has been causing the loss of life for more than thousands of years. Global warming's effects have only been seen recently, right now, very recently. So I believe that we should tackle previous problems before we combat new ones. With that being said, let me begin introducing my points that support my claim. Firstly, climate change efforts require a long time, whereas global poverty can be instantly cured, meaning that climate change efforts take a longer time to construct and create and an even longer time to implement. And you can't even predict if the implementation will lead to change or not because it's all a matter of creating revenue with the big companies, and climate change efforts usually indicate that the revenue will be decreased. Hence, the efforts to make a change with climate change is a very long and tiring and expensive process, and it may be fruitless at the end. Whereas global poverty can be tackled with much less effort and money. Global poverty can be tackled with governmental aid, international aid from developing countries, and so on. Have you guys heard of the phrase, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime? Why does this phrase matter here? When developed countries want to implement changes to help developing countries, they only need to do it once. One action has a ripple effect for centuries to come. If they support it by building schools or offering medical aid or educational merits, developing countries will have enough resources to grow and move out of their poverty. Even more, this has already happened before. In the year 2000, a rule was implemented called the Millennium Development Goals, and it was to eradicate poverty, and it took 15 years for them to eradicate half of the extreme poverty all over the world. That only took 15 years for them to do. Imagine 15 more. Moving on to my second point, solving the global poverty problem will not just benefit those that are living in poverty, but it will also be a win for all of us. Eradicating poverty doesn't mean just giving one person a basic needs for them to live on with their day, but also means providing them with proper education and medical merits. As can be seen right now, those with lower wages or those that are suffering from poverty are the ones affected the most during the pandemic. The people we trusted the most and the people we needed the most, the delivery places, the fast food restaurants, and all of those, they're the backbone of our economy and society. Yet they're the ones to be they are the ones to be negatively impacted when a crisis hits. If governments all over the world were able to provide enough money and enough resources for those people, then the pandemic wouldn't have lasted for so long, or at least not that many people would have been affected by the pandemic if there was some sort of financial aid given to those living in poverty. When the global poverty issues are solved worldwide, the whole world will see its effect. The whole world will be able to move forward and become a million times better than it is now. The world at the moment is only functioning at less than 50%. Yes, go ahead.
Wouldn't you agree that if climate change isn't dealt with, the whole world would also see the effect of climate change?
Yes, definitely. But if we haven't even been able to combat global poverty, a problem that has been trailing us for thousands and thousands of years, how would we be able to combat global warming, something that some countries haven't even begun to experience it? So, some countries haven't even been able to understand that global warming is an actual thing and it's actually harming them. There isn't enough education about global warming yet, but there's so much about global poverty. Everyone is affected by global poverty every day. More than 36% of the world's population is living in global poverty. If we can't even fix a problem that is so apparent and that is there every day at the back of our mind, how can we solve something that we don't even have the resources to tackle yet? So what I'm trying to say here, that if we do combat global poverty, it will affect the society and the world as a whole. The world right now is only functioning at less than 50% of its capacity because not everyone is able to contribute to the world in the same way. But if we all had the same opportunities and level of education, nothing would stand in our way, not even global warming. So what I'm trying to say here is that if the world cannot rid itself of global poverty, an issue that has been going on for forever, how will we be able to combat climate change and global warming, issues that are fairly new and fairly unknown and unfamiliar to everyone? Yes, thank you.
I would like to thank the first speaker from the opposition team for her speech. Now I would like to call upon the second speaker from the proposition team to continue the proposition case. Here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so start the timer when I'm talking. This House believes global warming is more important than global poverty, and as side of government, my Prime Minister has clearly stated that we are not discrediting the fact that global poverty is a major issue, but we are wanting to emphasize more on the global warming because it's a bigger problem than global poverty itself, because it brings more harms, natural disasters, economical damage, and the potential for whole countries to submerge into water due to the meltdown of ice, and more sources and mitigation efforts are needed for global warming compared to global poverty. So my point is, he clearly stated that the survival of human race is way more essential than short-term economic damage. And he also clearly stated that natural disasters for people, and the opposition was coming as nobody are aware about natural disasters. Like, I'm not too sure which country they're specifically speaking of, because global warming is going to greatly affect these poor nations, the countries that are below the poverty line, because most of their jobs are basically on farming or fisheries. So who is going to be affected mostly is because of these people, because when global warming happens, meltdowns of ice cores or icebergs and stuff, what's going to happen? The freshwater level is going to decrease because there's going to be more seawater level increase. This will become a difficulty for them in terms of farming, and also fisheries is going to be a lot of problem because the lack of fresh water is another problem for farming. And if there's so much of water, 70% of the earth is made of water, imagine if having 80 to 85%, it's going to be much more harder to catch fishes and all. So these are the major two jobs for the people who are living in these poor countries. Their jobs are going to be affected. So how do you think that they don't care about it? And this is something that we're seeing every single day. Himalayas, when it melted, it caused a lot of problem for the neighboring countries near India, Nepal, and all these other Bangladeshi countries and stuff. So the ones who are facing acute vulnerability towards global warming itself are the third world countries, or the poor countries, or countries like Africa, because they are the ones who are going to suffer most. Not only just by water level rising, climate change also increasing drought. Drought is a major cause due to global warming itself. So these are another problems. And climate change is intangible and harder to communicate to decide. So more time and resources and communication is needed for this problem. And also, the major problem in global poverty is that, let me finish first. Global poverty is that the problem of food shortage, homelessness, inadequate nutrition, food insecurity, healthcare, and unsafe environments. So all of these problems, their root cause is coming from food shortage will come if there is a lack of fresh water due to acid rains or raising sea levels. Heavy dependence on international trade for food is a common thing in these poor countries. Imagine if they are having more problems in the food sector just because of climate change. That is why we are emphasizing on climate change, on global warming itself. And homelessness is another major problem, and natural disasters are going to make them become more homeless. So if you're stating that they are already been facing this problem and they don't care about climate change, that is entirely wrong, because climate change is a major contributor to global poverty. They are both heavily interlinked, and billions of damage in terms of economy is going to affect the poor countries as well, because this is going to increase the inflation in these countries. And the people are going to struggle way more in terms of economics. And heat wave and drought is going to affect the poor people. Most importantly, it's going to threaten famines, decrease in crop yields, loss of landmass due to coastal areas. And what will end up, people will, there'll be a situation where they lead to migration towards other countries. So this is going to be way more impactful and problematic towards the global poverty line countries. Yeah, the POI, I'm open.
All right. If you were to say the economic of these countries, they do not even have enough resources to actually do this climate change efforts at all. So how would you tackle that?
Right, bro. Let me make it clear. Climate change is a heavily debatable, argumentative issue. You're going to ask who's going to solve this problem, and you're arguing whether developed countries or the developing countries. That's a different topic itself. My problem here is that we are going to emphasize on which is way more important. And if you're asking how these countries are going to solve them, let me tell you clearly, World Bank clearly stated that by 2030, it's very possible to solve global poverty. Right? It's never been an issue that cannot be solved at all. It's been tried for hundreds of years. That is something I would say irrelevant, because many countries which were very, very bad in terms of economics has been rising. Countries like Taiwan in Southeast Asia, so many countries, including Malaysia itself. We were so poor 100 years ago. Today we are doing so well. Why? Many people have changed their lives from from poverty line. India, China, every single year a person's GDP growth, the countries, the state, the class, everyone's economic wealth is growing. So you can't say that it's not working at all. You cannot justify the fact that that's a bigger problem, because global warming is going to create more problems towards global poverty, and we are in the way to solve this problem already. So you don't want to add more problems to problems, right? And another problem, another statement claimed by the opposition is that global poverty must be solved first, because and they don't care about natural disasters because they're already in natural disasters, and they kind of contradicted themselves, because they say that no country could solve it for 100 years, and then they also claim that it must be implemented first. Global poverty must be emphasized first because it's way more easier to solve than climate change. Like, what are you trying to say now? If it's way more easier, then we need to look at the bigger problem. We need to focus on the problematic one. You can't say that climate change efforts are fruitless, because it's been working. We are working in terms of controlling CO2 emissions, ozone layers. So you can't claim it's fruitless. It's been helping and restoring a lot of countries. This COVID-19 itself showed that when humans are not emitting much greenhouse emissions, look how much has the world changed. So yeah, and your claim of global poverty can be backed by funds and donations on opportunities. They have been done for centuries. And if it's still there in certain third world countries, that is mostly due to the states and the governments who are involved, who have very high practice of corruptions and stuff. Financial aid is being sent already. So what we can do now is focus more on global warming, because that so that we do not prolong the global poverty and we are able to solve it as soon as possible. With that, I'm proud to propose that global warming is way more important than global poverty. Thank you.
I thank Suba for that speech. Now I would like to call upon the second speaker of the opposition team to continue the opposition case. Here.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So I would like to take a view of poverty and its link to terrorism and criminal activity. So I'd just like to take you through what I'm thinking. So what I'm attempting to do is to examine whether the socioeconomic status of individuals born into or coming into poverty can be seen as a contributing factor towards criminal activity. So generally, it is a fact widely acknowledged and probably known to you as well, that in areas where economic inequality is staggeringly high, that is, standards of living disparity is great, crimes are in accordance common and frequent. So several studies have found that small reductions in income inequality often cause large reductions in homicides. Individuals are often driven to commit such crimes as they hold an understandably pessimistic view resulting from their poverty-ridden youth, from financial and income trauma, that crime may be the most that they can make of their lives. While poverty cannot often be seen as the sole driving factor by many, it definitely creates an enabling environment in which the receptivity to terrorist narratives and the mass support for radical organizations can increase. What terrorist groups spread in impoverished countries is backhanded welfare gains. They establish schools, hospitals, places of worship in areas saturated with low-income groups. This gives them an ironic standard of credibility and a willingness amongst these groups to give support and enthusiasm to their objectives. The United Nations defines social exclusion from poverty as being defined by an individual's lack of participation in decision-making processes in civil, socioeconomic, and cultural life, and is a systematic denial of an individual's fundamental rights and opportunities that impedes his integration into communal life. By being relegated to the very margins of society, these excluded individuals or communities are particularly likely to develop potent sentiments of disenfranchisement and of alienation that might ultimately foster a feeling of identity vacuum. Developing nations, or if we're being specific, poverty-ridden nations, are far likelier to experience the damaging effects of terrorism. This is due to the marked characteristics of a history of corruption, poor governance, and a failed judicial system in most cases. In 2004, Bloomberg conducted a study to examine the effect of terrorism on economic viability. We have but to open a news website on our browser to come to terms with the disconcerting fact that terrorist attacks have increased in the past decade, and the effects of these are worse on developing countries and poor countries. When the limited funds that go into combating terrorism through counterterrorism initiatives, regenerating schools and hospitals, illegal pocketing by high-ranking officials, little to no funds will remain to fund sustainable production methods or environmental awareness programs. Not because climate change is not urgent, because as Greta Thunberg did mention, we have to act now. But perhaps that action comes from a series of actions, and the first one to save the world may be to rescue such countries and their heartbroken members. Thank you.
I would like to thank the second speaker of opposition for her speech. Now let us move on to the third speaker of the government team, the proposition team, to close the prop case. Here.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm the final speaker for the proposition, and I will be explaining to you today why dealing with global warming is more important than dealing with global poverty. First of all, I will rebut the previous speaker's points. The previous speaker was saying that we need to progress society to be able to deal with global warming. But there's no evidence in history that you need to progress society, you need to pull everyone out of poverty before you progress society. Like every single great change we've made for the world, from vaccines to the automobile to communication, has been made with people still in poverty. Global warming is not an exception to that. There's no need for everyone in the world to be economically advantaged before global warming can be dealt with. Second, to move on to the fact that while both global warming and global poverty are incredibly important, they are not both time sensitive. And previous speakers have been saying global poverty has been around for thousands of years. Exactly, it's been around for thousands of years. It's not a time sensitive issue. On the other hand, global warming, every major city, not every major city, but most major cities could be underwater within 100 years. San Francisco could be underwater. All of the economically disadvantaged countries could be going through far worse things than they are now, with typhoons and hurricanes. And global poverty isn't time sensitive in the same way that global warming is. Finally, for my final rebuttal, the negative side is saying that global warming is tireless and tiring. Any changes we make to global warming won't actually be seen for a few years. But tiring doesn't mean fruitless. Climate change is an urgent matter. Just because the amount of change you get in from a large investment isn't big, doesn't mean it's not important. What's the point of supporting people in poverty when they're going to fall prey to climate change anyway? And okay. To move on to the clashes and why I believe we won this debate. The negative party is saying why focus on climate change? There's plenty of reasons why we should focus on climate change. As I've already mentioned, global warming will plunge the entire world into poverty. Therefore, focusing on global poverty won't help long term, because the people we actually save from global poverty will be in a much worse position 50, 100 years from now as they currently are. Like, let's take the Philippines as an example. The Philippines is already prone to natural disasters. It's already a coastal city. It's already prone to flooding. Imagine if global warming actually takes place, how much worse it will get for the people in the Philippines. No amount of economic freedom or security will actually save them from losing their homes, from losing their loved ones.
POI?
There's no way. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the example you're using right now, if they were educated enough about the global warming effects and the problems that would have happened because of everything is going on around them right now, they would have been able to combat it properly. But because of global poverty in their area, they haven't been able to educate properly about what's going on.
Okay. See, the problem with the logic there is you're assuming that the more educated a country is, the less it's going to contribute to global warming. But if you actually look at the countries which are the biggest contributions for, let's say, carbon emissions, because that's a good parameter for measuring global warming, then the biggest two countries are China and America, which are not even arguably, but the two economically most secure and richest countries in the world. Neither education nor a strong economy leads to less global warming, or actually the people acting more responsibly. That comes from the policymakers and us all coming together and actually making a difference. Further on, the negative never actually dealt with the loss of life caused by global warming. They talk about the starvation from poverty. They talk about all of the people in suffering. But the thing is, global warming can lead to the extinction of the entire human race, which global poverty never could. And I feel like for the negative to win this debate, they would have to convince us somehow that global poverty is more pressing than the extinction of the entire race. Finally, the final reason I believe we won this debate is the negative side are saying many people are in dire need of help, therefore we should help them first. And there's nothing preventing us combating poverty and climate change at the same time. What the affirmatives are saying is that we need to prioritize global warming when considering the long-term prospects and the long-term prosperity of humanity. Because if we don't prioritize global warming, there won't be any humanity left. And all of the changes you make through your eradication of global poverty will go out the window when people lose their homes, when natural disasters hit. I've never been prouder to propose a motion that global warming is more important than global poverty. Thank you.
I would like to thank Lucas for his speech, and I would now like to invite the third speaker of the opposition team to close the opposition case. Here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will start right now. Okay, you see, the proposition team said that we should handle it right now. But then ask the question to yourself right now. Global poverty has been there for centuries. It has been there in the 19th century, it has been there in the 18th centuries. People, the rich countries, they exploit all these poor countries. They exploit out the resources from it and they use it. And that's causing the poverty in that countries. And if you are saying that climate change is an issue, climate change is an issue right now. Why is climate change an issue not last, how many years ago? But then this time it's happening now because of that, because of all these, hypocrites, all these people, influential people, competitors, making Tesla, making Sony, making electric cars. All of these people are hypocrites in the sense of they are competing one another for climate change efforts. But if you see those climate change efforts that they are making, electric cars, they are actually even harmful to the nation, to the whole society itself. And this causes a lot of problems to the future. Do you know that actually governments in the US in 2017 have actually gave 39.2 billion ringgit, $39.2 billion for poverty. They have allocated the money for that, but only 32 million only for climate change. This shows how poverty is a real issue. And one of them said the survival of human race depends on climate change, global warming and stuff like that. But if I ask you right now, if only one country, the rich country, is only doing the climate change very into global warming and stuff, but if the other country is still doing harmful, polluting the environment, there's no point, because we are all breathing the same air. And that's why I'm saying that we have to eradicate global poverty first, because these people are very vital to us. Basically, what I'm saying is, to solve problems such as climate change, everyone's voice should be heard. There are so many folks out there with brilliant ideas who love their voices to be heard and really want to get the attention that they deserve. Instead, these people are being stepped and ignored by many of us. You see, to tackle climate change, you need to have a support from all of us as a nation, regardless from the rich or the poor. The strongest nation in the world is not going to be the US, it's not going to be the Russia, it's not going to be anywhere in Asia, but the strongest nation has always been and will always be imagination. Imagine if the government and the people actually collaborated, we would solve poverty and make transformation. We would shine like the stars and the sun. We would use music to heal the world like guitars over guns. See, if we can imagine a better world together, based not on our differences, but on the things that connect us and make us a whole, such as food and water, then we can create a future that is much greater than any vision that we could ever have alone. I emphasize the word together because, as the African proverb states, if you want to go far, go alone. But if you want to go, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And how would this affect poverty? Well, you see, $200 billion worth of food have been thrown away each year. Instead of putting it into the trash cans, put it into the empty stomachs of the needy. Stop being greedy. Everyone has the right to be fed. In the US, there are 5 empty homes for each person without one. Everyone has a right to a roof of their head. You might be thinking I'm talking about communism, but I'm not here talking about communism or socialism. I am talking about humanism. Plus, don't the people who are religious call themselves loyal to God? Well, at the end of your life, you will stand in front of God. He won't care if you won an election and got to be president. He won't bother if you created a technology to curb pollution in return of exploiting money from it. Believe me, he will say, yeah, congratulations. But when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was naked, you didn't clothe me. When I had no house, you gave me no shelter. Guys, we have forgotten about our brothers and sisters. I mean, the meaning of life is to take care of each other. Look, my ancestors come to Malaysia on immigration ships.
You are
Maybe yours come on slave ships. No, thank you. Whatever ship it is, we are on the same boat now. And it is in darkness that we see the stars. We must not turn on each other, but to each other. Give up on pride. Left wing, right wing, whatever it is. A bird with only one wing can't fly and only flies in circles. You see, we have tried everything. People, put into politics, rallies, riots, protests, and they've all played a role. But today,
Yeah, why, bro?
we need something bold. We need each and every soul to wake up and look deep in your core. What does your heart want to solve? Do not ignore that. Because when we all answer that call, we open a new door that elevates humanity and creates a new normal that we have never seen before. You see, countries are just only artificial lines drawn on a man-made map. There's only one world, and it's up to us to come together to help the needy by contributing and playing our part as humans. And that's why we are here today as opposition team to support the idea where global poverty is one of the major issues that has been here and has been there. Climate change is something suddenly popped out and suddenly everyone's looking into it.
Yeah, why,
If
sir?
there is Jack, sorry, if there is an asteroid coming to hit us next week, if I were to say that, you know what will happen? All the rich people will just enter into one ship and just fly off away. But what happens to all the people who are suffering in poverty? People who build that ship to fly, they would just be neglected. And that's why I say we are all in one world, and it's up to us to come together to help the needy by contributing and playing our part as humans. Thank you.
I would like to thank the third speaker from the opposition team, Hari, for his speech. And with that, we have ended our debate for today. And I thought that it was a really interesting, it was an excellent debate. Everyone has done extremely well. And I hope that the audience has also enjoyed this debate thoroughly. And also, I would like to remind the audience, if you haven't casted your votes yet, please do it right now because we'll be calculating the scores. Yeah, please take 5 minutes to vote. We'll give you 5 minutes to make your decision and submit your votes. So if you have any questions regarding the judging form or any concerns that you have, please do type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, can I ask a question now?
Yeah, sure.
So I have a question for the the proposition
Oh, you
team.
mean for the debate just now?
Yeah, about the debate.
Oh, for the debate just now, we'll have a Q&A session later. Now it's just the judging, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just
we have
take
5 minutes for voting?
Yes, correct. And then after that, we will be having a Q&A session where you can ask your questions. So yeah, you can wait for that later.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Excuse me. Do the debaters also need to vote?
Vartika, should the debaters vote too?
They can actually.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so debaters, if you want to vote, you can also click on the form and vote for the speaker you think who is the best. Okay, so if you do not want to, it's also fine. Yeah, Suba, it's fine.
All right, I think we can begin with the question and answer session now.
Yeah. Oh, and before that, I would also like to say about the SCPD form, the SCPD points. So, Vartika, would you be sharing it in the meeting chat? Yes. So for this debate, you can also claim SCPD points. So if you want to claim for the points, you can fill in the form that's just been posted in the meeting chat. And this form will be open for 10 minutes, approximately 10 minutes until the end of this session. So you can fill it in while this Q&A session is actually going on, or you can fill it in right now.
Junyan, could you please contact me after this event is over so I can register you?
So the SCPD form is only for engineering students and not for psychology students. Please take note. Okay, so while you guys are actually filling in this form, so I'll just open the floor for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hands, and then I'll be calling you. You can ask a question, and anyone from the floor, the debaters, can answer the question. Or debaters, if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can also ask as well. Yeah, so does anybody have any questions? The audience? I think somebody had a question just now. Was it Myrna?
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a question to the proposition team. So, someone mentioned that Malaysia and Taiwan were in the middle of poverty and starvation, I don't know, 100 years ago or something. But then now they're better. I'm just saying, also 100 years ago, there are other countries that were in good state, and now they're starving, and now they're struggling. And most probably because other developed countries have exploited their treasures and their resources. So I was asking, it's not that one side of the world got better means the whole world got better. The other side got worse. So how do you address that? So technically, the issue is not solved globally, just locally at this area. Also, as mentioned, USA and China actually are the most countries releasing greenhouse gases, and this is why contributing the most to global warming. But they are the least affected, at least for, I don't know, the next century. And the most one affected now, they can see it, are usually developing countries that pay the price for the global warming effects. And yet they're not being helped, and they're also already suffering from poverty. So again, it's complicated because the rich one or the developed ones are using most of the resources of the planet. They're contributing the most to the global warming, and they're just increasing more problems on already poor countries who suffer poverty and starvation. So how they're actually helping in that, or how the whole humanity will suffer from global warming, while now we already can see the effects of global warming now, but not in those developed countries. So that's my question, my two questions. Thank you.
So anyone from proposition? Yeah. Go ahead, Suba.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think Myrna, you mentioned about two things basically based on what I heard. So I think it was majorly on imperialism factor and how it increased the difference between global wealth gap between rich and the poor. And second was more towards how developed countries created the problem in the first place. Now the developing countries are facing it. So yeah, as you mentioned, it is a complicated issue, and that's why we need more emphasis on it. And in terms of imperialism, there isn't something like you could do about it because that just happened and was part of history. But what we can say and clearly see now, and if you like even with the COVID situation and even without the COVID situation, there is a clear indicating factor that people in general in the developing countries like India and China are becoming wealthier year by year. So that's something that no one can deny because that is the fact. And it is true because of the country's, the state economical policies, it has been changing and due to globalization factor as well. So global poverty is changed during, or there's a transformation in global poverty due to the economical policies and the state's movement as well. And also, you claimed about the fundings as well. In countries like Mozambique, where they are really poor, how much fundings are they going to be expecting from the UN and other sources? They need to implement certain policies where they are doing it right now. They have certain organizations which face this community to conduct reforestations, where they are able to tackle climate change and prevent deforestations and also reduce poverty because it's a self-supporting profit-making long-term sustainability programs because they are heavily relied on timber, coal, energy sources. And
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yes,
another thing I want to add that what do you call? Yeah, the most people like to say that the richer get richer, poorer get poorer. Well, only half of it is true. That the richer get richer, but the poorer also getting richer. Yeah, it's quite what do you call? It's not as fast as the rich, but they are getting richer. And also, as of right now, we actually have enough resources to feed every single human being on the planet. But as we see, the only problem is just logistical problem. Most of the people that is starving and all that, like for example in Syria and some parts of Africa, is because of like war and just bad logistics and that's all. And not only that, like Subha said that, yeah, giving aid to country sometimes it's just counterproductive because sometimes they become dependent on the country they're giving on aid. The best way to liberate themselves from poverty is just good policy. China and Vietnam have already shown us that is more trade and less barrier to trade. So that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, to add upon it, actually, like the proposition team said about like these government aids are being just like only just for like a showcase for these poor people, right? Actually, I find it quite wrong in the sense of they are doing it willingly, you know. This financial aid, I mean government aid, they are giving it willingly to the poor people as compared if you're looking into climate change efforts. For example, if you see in the US, there is this one of these companies which is called Optimus Prime. Sorry, not Optimus Prime, it's Optimus Right, which you can see the interview itself of the CEO saying that this Optimus Right is a company where they produce autonomous vehicles to go about in the US, and it's one of the things they claim that is very, you know, all this global stuff, they use very good engine source, clean energy and stuff like that. But the thing that they're suffering the most is to get money, funding from government. There's a lot of private money going into it and less of funding from government. So if in this the way it prolongs, at one stage it will come up to a conclusion where they will not even have enough money to get from the government, and they would have to put in private money, and only these individual people are the ones going to get the effort, I mean the name for it, and they are only going to help a certain amount of people, and this is going to cause the poor people to get even poorer in that sense. So that's what my opinions are and my research that I've done. All right.
Okay, anyone else wants to add from prop? Okay, so if there's nothing else, I think someone raised the hand. Is it? Oh, yeah. So Sharfa, do you have any question?
Yeah, I have a question for both the debate teams. Okay, so I generally thought that this point would be like a main point of the debate. I thought you guys would debate about it. The billionaires and trillionaires of the world have 2/3 of the world's wealth. They amount to less than 1% of the population. Do you think that these people should be forced to give their money to the economic job prospects or to the global warming relief? And why? This question is for everyone.
So yes, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah.
So okay, so about the real population of the wealthy wealth. So okay, I'm not going to discuss about the what they call the morality of it or anything, but I'm just saying like when we try to take the rich people wealth, what happens is they just go to other country. So yeah, that's one of the things. So I mean, and also I just don't think we can do that just because of the the logistical standpoint of reappropriating their wealth. Because if anything, the rich just have a way in getting away, go to other country or something like that. So I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm guessing.
No, the question isn't whether you can take the money from the rich. The question is, do you think it should go to global warming relief or to economic job prospects?
Global warming.
I think, yeah, my perspective would be you can't actually ask them or even think about it, because that's a flaw in capitalism itself. Whoever wins the capitalism race becomes trillionaires or billionaires, it's their choice. So it's unfair for you to go and ask them to, whatever excess you have and go and throw it into these major problems. So anything when it comes to economical policies, it's the flaw of the system itself, capitalism system itself. So you have to think about, that's totally a different argument already. That's why.
Yeah, true. I completely agree with what Subha said. But if you were to tell in the question in another way, saying that if I was a billionaire, right, where should I put in? I would confirm put it into the poverty side, lah, poor people, because like there's not much stuff you can put in the climate change efforts, and it's very vague, to say for climate change, where poverty is something real, it's something happening right now itself, and it's been happening since like a long time ago. So they should actually put in for the poor people, and I think from what I've seen, many of these poor people, many of these rich people, they are also contributing to the society in the sense of giving it to the poor people and stuff like that. And I seldom see some rich people giving it to some climate change efforts and stuff. That's the thing from my opinions. That's all. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Sharfa, I think?
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Shafa, also adding to what everyone is saying, I don't think that their money should only go to one person or to one cause or all of that. Like, since we're outside the debate, both things we argued about today are very, very important things, and that will continue to affect us for years to come. So I think if billionaires do want to donate their wealth or something like that, they should donate to both causes. And instead of just donating money to charities, they should actually take an action to build schools or to build hospitals in places that need them, like, in poverty countries and countries that suffer from poverty and all of that, instead of just donating money, because usually when people donate money, the government doesn't really implement and the change doesn't really happen. And as for global warming, there are so many billionaires at the moment donating so much to it, but nothing really has changed yet, because people will continue to produce, and it's harder to convince companies and the capitalist world to stop producing so we could save the world. So I think overall, money should go for both things because they're both equally important and they should be tackled right away.
Thank you for your answer, Sarah. That was really well put. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, no problem.
Okay, thank you. I saw a few people raising their hands. I'm not sure if you wanted to ask a question or you wanted to answer. Was it Sanjana? I saw you raising your hand just now. Yeah, Vartika.
Hello?
Yeah, Sanjana.
Yeah, I just I wanted to add on to what Sarah said, but then again, like she put it really well. But just from my end, I would say that the funding should be definitely equalized between climate change and economic growth prospects, because at the end of the day, they're inextricably linked. In the sense that if their money, if say Jeff Bezos or anybody else or anybody rich that we're talking about was to fund economic growth in any country, in the long term, that would lead to higher GDP and more funds available to implement sustainable production methods. So in the long run, eradicating poverty will eradicate climate change. So yeah, I think I just wanted to add on. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Sarah and Sanjana really well said. Yeah, Vartika, do you have anything to ask?
Yep, I have a question. This should go to team. I think, okay, I'm not sure which team it should go to, because it's kind of a general question. But so my question is, now we're trying to combat global poverty, right? But by the time we try to combat global poverty, global warming is going to take over, and yeah, it's more like we're just all going to die once, So what's the point of combating global poverty when we die anyway if we don't combat global warming?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to say, but it's a dilemma, because if we do focus on global warming and we do fix it, okay, we will help. It will be useful in the long run. But right now, people are living in poverty and they're dying every day because of it. No one is dying every day because of global warming as of yet. But people are dying every day because of global poverty. So how can we justify that how can we say, okay, it's okay, let's just wait, let's just make them wait for 10 more years until we fix global warming, and then we'll get back to them. More people will continue to die. So it's just like, you know, when your deadlines are building up and you're like, but I have an essay due tomorrow and I have an essay due next week and I haven't even started on the one due next week. So you leave the one that's due tomorrow and you start on the one next week. But both ways, we're in the wrong because we haven't started from before. We should have been combating this from a very long time, but now because we're late, things are piling up, and now our priorities are all messed up and we don't know where to start. Fair. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
So so like most people say like, okay, we can only choose between solving global poverty and global warming, but I think we can do both because yeah, both of it are kind of interlapping, but not really, because I don't know, like when I see the world, I see poverty is not like a poverty is more like a structural, so what you call structural flaw, if you must say. Because when we look into country where more poor people live, you see that they have like very little economic advancement and all of that, and so I just see that okay, we just make it like easier for them to trade. Usually, what happen is more people become rich, and even the poorer people are become had a better life. And something about the what do you call? And sometimes like people say, oh, economic. Because we want to do economic activity, we must sacrifice the environment. Well, not really. Like if we have like a good regulation, because sometimes just avoid the problem. Like for example, like using like nuclear energy will like save a lot of problem from burning coal, and it is better in that way. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
does
kind of
anybody
completely
else?
agree with that. Yeah, I guess Sanjana wanted to say something.
No, no, it's fine.
All right, cool.
Okay, we have Dipan as well. He wants to ask a question. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's addressed to both teams. Do you think that poverty is more of a symptom of a problem, and the problem being global warming? That if we were to ignore global warming, then poverty would be more significant in the future. It would widen the gap between the poor and the rich. So if we were to not address global warming first, then we can never address poverty at all. It's addressed to both teams.
Okay, see ya.
Can I answer?
Okay. Go ahead, Sanjana. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to say, yeah, they do definitely go hand in hand. But the thing is, when we look at, let's just take a hypothetical example and consider the life of a farmer living in a sub-Saharan African country. Because of climate change and everything that's been happening, his crop is dead. Like, he had no harvest for the year, nothing worked out, he can't feed his family, there's no income coming in. Now, that you can say is a direct result of global warming. But if the farmer was to be educated and would say perhaps have different skills that would let him work in another sector that didn't involve agriculture, he could have fed his family and lived a good life. Do you see what I mean? In countries where education is not prioritized, where farming is prioritized, and the government does not fund good education, skill programs aren't offered, mostly in poverty-ridden countries, they aren't even able to combat the effects of climate change. So I think they go hand in hand, and both of them should be solved methodically together. It requires like a radical, complex approach. I think that's beyond the scope of this debate, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Hari, you had something you wanted to say?
Oh, it's just that I wanted to say that since right now, you see, global poverty is happening right now. You also say global warming is happening right now, but you can see if in the long run, right, if suddenly we have global warming very, very significant at that time, global poverty at that time would even increase more. Because you know why? Poverty has been started off very early off in the beginning itself. So we better counter global poverty first, because the UN sustainable goals, they did even say that global poverty can be, eradicated by the year 2030 and 2050 by global efforts from all the countries, and not only just few countries are doing their part. And we need to make sure that the rich countries stop exploiting much from the poorer countries. You see like rich countries from like US and all exploiting resources from like Kenya, from Africa and all these places, and they are not giving these skill sets, because you see how these poor countries, they're just giving their resources to them, and these rich countries are manufacturing these resources and they are selling it off for a very higher price at the end. So who gets the gain from at the end? It's probably just the rich countries becoming more richer and the poor countries are becoming even poorer. So one of the best solutions for that is that the rich countries should give particular skill sets to these poor countries for them to actually manufacture their own resources from their own country itself. And from there, you can see that both of these countries will start to go and become bigger in the future. And this could lead to lesser in global poverty, and both of these countries can go into hand for global climate change in the end. So that's all.
If I may give like a counter argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of addressing the problem downstream, why not address it upstream? Prevent the problem of having manufacturing in poor countries in the first place. You put in restrictions to prevent rich countries from exploiting. In that way, you prevent them from exploiting and reduce poverty. At the same time, you reduce the global warming effect. Now, what you're doing is you're allowing global warming to continue, but you're only reducing poverty.
So like I said just now, so we can do it hand in hand. We can do it together by that structural workflow. Make sure that they have to structure this first and then only go for the global climate change, because these poor countries, they don't even have the knowledge about climate change at all. I mean, I do know they know that climate change is real and stuff like that, but the problem is they are not going to take in climate change efforts, because you know why? Climate change efforts are really, really expensive to adopt. So that's why I say Deepan. All right, Deepan?
Yeah.
All right, so I would like to leave room for the, I think, proposition side to address their situation too.
Sorry, yeah, so about the, you see the problem, in my opinion, the notion that the rich are exploiting the poorer country, I don't think it's very, very useful for us, but because the rich country are not forcing the poor country to have all of these, factories, all of these manufacturing center and all of that. Because you must remember, the one that invite them in the first place is the people, and say at least the supposed representative for the people, that is the government themselves. Like if the government want to close off their economy, sure, they can do it. But as we see in the country that close off their economy, usually the economy become not good. So I don't think the notion that the rich are exploiting the poorer country too. I think the poor country are exploiting their own people, because by shifting the blame to the the richer country, we didn't attack the real culprit of the problem, I think.
Okay. Anyone else has any questions?
Can I ask a question or like explain something?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. From my view is, if you don't want to answer, that's okay. I'm just like explaining my view. So, for the one experience poverty, right? So, looking from like poor people's perspective, they would need like income to pay bills, to pay food and education for children. So like I was thinking like how would they react, because like I heard like from like previous points, one of the debaters said with solving climate global warming problem, we can also solve the poverty problem. So like, but what if, how would the poor people react if we say if they need help? Of course they would need like income, extra income, and they need help from like higher authorities. What if
or the authorities' reaction are like, okay, we are going to solve that by focusing on the global warming first. So like, how are the poor people gonna react? Of course, they're gonna be mad because like all they need is like income to pay bills. So and I thought like if they don't get to pay like bills for education for children, they won't have they won't be like educated on the knowledge for global warming and stuff. So yeah, that's just my view on it. Thank you.
Yep, very true, Nurina. That's what actually mentioned by our first speaker from the opposition side. She said that, right? Like these, all this climate change and all, these poor people really don't even bother about it because one thing they bother is getting food on their plate every single day. Correct? Yeah. So that's why we have to strengthen and make sure poverty is tackled first in poor countries because that's what in their mind. They don't bother about climate change. So yeah.
So I was wondering how are we gonna like convince them, you know? Yeah, so that's just my view on it. Sorry.
Yeah. So that one we'll leave to the proposition team to actually explain that.
Okay.
Proposition? Anyone wants to address this?
Yeah, okay, I'll just give my own like my opinion on it. Okay, actually, like personally, I actually agree with the what you call the opposition team. Like the reason why I say that global warming is the greater evil is because of the debate. Well, the reason is why I think the opposition is what you call have the better argument is because the fact is, okay, first of all, you must remember the reason why, because global warming happened in the first place because of the manufacturing and all of that, because we have many people inside the world, okay, and you must remember that okay, so people, that people that produce more what do you call carbon emission, all of that, so more people will produce more carbon emission. And one of the ways to actually decrease the number of people in this world is actually making them richer. So you just look at richer countries, for example, like France, UK, and America, where they have less and less children, while on poor country they have more and more children. Yes, per capita, the richer country consume taking more what do you call having more carbon footprint. But as we say that the richer country, they have less people. Another thing is one thing about farming. Yes, about farming. So if every single farmer in the world as efficient as the US corn grower, we need 50% less land to use it as farming. Yeah. So you need actually less people. So that's one of the things that, in my personal view, I actually agree that we need to combat combat poverty and making all of these poor country richer faster, so that they can become efficient like all of the richer country. Richer country have more efficient use of resources and all of that. So that's just my personal view, my opinion.
Yes, Suba, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I think just now also I stated, like when you are claiming that global poverty is high in these poor countries and major problem is education and need to emphasize more on that, think about their day-to-day life where what are their jobs? What are the problems they're facing? Like the problems they're facing is like in terms of healthcare. Imagine a world where global warming is increasing, there's more water-related issues, insecurities, the water sources are dirty and salt waters and stuff. We're gonna get more health-related problems like mosquito-borne diseases, malaria, diseases like that. And their food, humans instinct is food, right? So the moment that climate change happening, drought season, stuff, this is going to disrupt their day-to-day process or their job stuff and all. And this is going to be an enlightening thing for them. Rather than just putting money their plates or putting food to plates, we need to solve the root problem, which is global warming itself. So I believe almost majority of the problems faced by the poverty line people is related to the environment fact. Like, look at the countries who are in the poverty line. Look at their region they are. Look at the governments they have. So if you want to solve global poverty, you can't just close a blind eye with global warming. It needs to be done simultaneously. If not, if you're just focusing on poverty, then you're going to be in a bigger mess. So yeah, definitely, the developed countries must aid a lot, and the developing countries must have a lot of changes in their policies. But it's possible to balance both, because if you're just focusing on global poverty, you're going to have issues with inadequate nutrition, which causes prolonged issues for the poverty line people. And what is causing that? Food. So what's going to be a problem for food? Warming, raise in sea levels, drought season. So everything which is a problem for poverty line, unsafe environment, um, storms, and these issues can be solved if we emphasize more on global warming. That's a bigger picture and a bigger problem to solve. So that will be my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Suba. I think I'll allow 2 more questions, and then we'll end this Q&A session and announce the winners. So, Irvine?
Hello. This is not a question. This is more like of a statement. So just now earlier, you guys mentioned like how would these people in poverty actually feel if the government were to focus more on the efforts to combat global warming. First of all, I don't think that the government will explicitly tell the people that they are going to be focusing more on global warming instead of the efforts taken into tackling poverty. I think the amount of money that is allocated for both these situations are relative. It's not easy for us to quantify. You know, we cannot just say, oh, like 1 billion is going to be put into poverty and 2 billion is going to be put into global warming. So there's no actual way for us to quantify how much money is put into these causes. So I don't think we have to worry about how these people in poverty would feel, because first of all, I don't think they would know that the government, I mean, even if the government were to focus its efforts on to combating global warming, I don't think these people in poverty know. Then secondly is we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the people in poverty, right? At what point will it be enough for them? Because right now we see that the middle income, even the low income, those who still have those who are still able to live comfortably are not contented with the amount of money the government gives them through the welfare benefits. So how much would actually be enough for these people in poverty? Because even if we say that we will help them or focus our attention towards them, they might not be contented with what they have. We must continually provide to them to a point where they'll be complacent with the money or the amount of money that they will get. So I don't think we should focus on the aspect of how they would feel like, because yes, I know it's important and we shouldn't disregard their feeling, because none of us know how it feels like to be in poverty, but this should be the least of our concerns, because we don't know what will be enough, and it's very difficult for us to quantify what is enough for these people. Yeah, this is just a statement to add.
Yeah, true. Nice. Anyone else wants to ask a question or you give a statement, your opinion? I'll just allow 1 last question. Or if no one wants to ask a question, we'll end it on that note. Okay, it seems like I think we are done with the Q&A session. So thank you all the debaters and the audience for your really great questions and your really great answers. So now it's the most exciting part of the debate, which is announcing the winners. Let me just, yeah. So, okay. Actually, it was a really close debate, and I think it was just 1 point difference between both of the teams. So I think that everyone did a really good job. So today, the winners would be proceeding to the Friday's finale, and they will be debating against the winners from tomorrow's Wednesday's debate. So now, the winning team for this debate for today, this house believes global warming is more important than global poverty. The winning team goes to, drum roll, opposition team. Congratulations. And don't forget, we also have best speakers from both teams. So I'll announce the best speaker from the proposition team first. The best speaker for the proposition team goes to Suba. Yay, congratulations. Congratulations, Suba. And for the best speaker from the opposition team goes to Sarah. Congratulations, Sarah and Suba, for being chosen as the best speakers. You all did great. And maybe I'll just request everyone to turn on their video cameras so we can just take a quick photo. Let me just unshare my screen. Yeah, so if you're comfortable in turning on your video cameras, please do so.
I'm just gonna wait for everyone to turn on their cameras, and then I'm gonna click a picture for our social media. Ritvik, hard to do it. All right, if everyone's ready, let me take the picture now.
1, 2, 3, cheese.
All right, it has come out pretty well. Thank you so much for attending, everyone, and congrats to the winners who are proceeding to the finale, and also to the proposition team. I feel the debaters did really, really well. Most of them were first timers. Thank you so much for attending, and we really hope to see you tomorrow. Over to you, Chen Chen.
Yeah, we want to inform everyone that we'll be having another debate tomorrow, same time, 6 to 8 p.m. And the debate motion would be the House believes humans are naturally violent. So for those who are interested in tomorrow's debate, we strongly encourage you to join and also to spectate the debate. And for the winners, you'll be proceeding to Friday's finale, and the motion will be reviewed on Wednesday, 8 p.m. We will contact you through Teams and also through WhatsApp, so you can be informed about the motions and which side you'll be on. Yeah. So congratulations to all the debaters again, and for the audience to be so good listeners in today's debate and voted really, really well. So I would see all of you tomorrow again and on Friday as well. So have a good night and see you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.